Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London, and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Skeindeer. And don't forget the Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, where there are a number of giveaways going on right now and a number of knit-alongs and general chatter, people helping each other out, that sort of thing. So do join that group if you want to and haven't already, because it is the best group. I love my group. Very happy that I, after some persuasion months ago, started one. It's a good place to be. Now, as usual, I will just start this episode by, of course, saying welcome. Thank you so much for watching. Whether you are a new viewer or an old viewer, I welcome you all the same. And heads up, I am tired today. Sure, there's like every episode been starting with some kind of news about how am I doing. I'm sad, I am sick, this time I'm tired and a bit pressed for time. So all of the above, but also a bit rushed because I need to get to work and it's morning still. It's quite misty outside here in London. My voice hasn't quite woken up, so we're trying to help you with some coffee because that's how it works, right? So it's either this episode or no episode. I hope this episode will go up in time for the second installment in the Seven Mitten Club, because I will be in Bergen at the time this episode goes up, I think. So yeah, it will be delayed for that reason, because I will be introducing the 1st of October mittens. So there's that. So a few things I'll be saying will not be true at the time that I'm saying them, but hopefully be true when this episode is up and running. Gosh, I don't even know what to start with first. Let's cover the knit-alongs. Yes, so there's the Marius knit-along that's gonna go on for all of winter, which is why I personally am not stressing about knitting a Marius just yet. But if you're curious what a Marius is, it's anything in the pattern of that pillow, but we're going with garments, so anything kind of torso garment, jumper, jacket, cardigan, you name it. I made a bundle on Ravelry of eligible patterns. There's a lot of stuff happening in the chatter group on Ravelry. I have since opened a FO thread, so you can already now post your finished objects, but only your finished objects and only one post per person per project. So if you make several projects you can have more posts, but not more than one for each project of yours. And yeah, it's a really cool knit along. Very nice introduction to Norwegian colourwork knitting garments. That isn't too daunting, I don't think, for anyone, to be honest. I did my first colourwork garment in the Marius pattern, and and that was my second overall adult human garment, so I would strongly recommend joining that. And the patterns are translated in SKD yarns, so it's all there for you, you guys. The other knit along that's going on is for the flea cardigan, which I am actually not wearing today. I pretty much wear it every day, but I'm indoors. It's a bit warm, even though it's made in the lightest of lamb's wool. It is actually quite nice and warm and soft, and I love it. And finished mine a couple of weeks, if not a month ago, and it's just the best thing I have. So yeah, I am very glad that me and Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast are co-hosting this knit along. It is a pretty good one, and just been so impressed with what everybody's been making, and again helping each other out and so on. The cal ends on Halloween. The 31st of October is your last day of entry, so hang in there guys, you'll make it. And last but not least, as far as knit alongs goes, is of course the Mitten knit along. The Seven Mitten Club, I should say, which is the most exciting thing that's probably happened in my knitting life thus far. It's taken on its life on its it has taken on a life of its own. That's how you say it in English, I don't know. It's just really cool. The enthusiasm I've seen for Norwegian colourwork mittens has been beyond my expectations. I can only thank you guys. And thank you so much for spreading the word, because it's gone well beyond this little podcast sphere here. Like I hear like my local yarn shops being like, oh yeah, someone came in today and we're looking for yarn for your mittens. I heard that at Yarndale as well, which is something I will get back to. But yeah, just thank you. We've taken over the internet, guys. At least the knitting internet. That is so cool. And I am really considering making this an annual thing, because it's a really nice way to get a couple of Christmas gifts churned out, if that's what you do, if you just want to knit for yourself or for others in general without being particularly festive. All of that is just really awesome. So it is something I'm considering, and I'll be open to hear your opinions. I have also heard some people suggesting doing a sock club, so a Norwegian sock club, and I'm on the fence about that, because on one hand I could just do, you know, the usual kind of sock recipe that we all know and love, the kind of tight fitting fingering weight, and put some color work on there and source them from traditional Norwegian knitting. Thing is that traditionally it's not necessarily how socks have been made. There have been some of those as well, for sure, but mostly we wear lasta. And those of you who watch the Arctic Knitting podcast will have heard this word before. It's a sock. It's a word that means socks, but it's the kind of socks that are very, very thick, often ribbed, to still fit your feet nicely and basically fill out the gaps between your feet and your boots. So they're not supposed to kind of replace our day-to-day commercial socks. They are yeah, just bigger. They're more like slippers in a sense. So for me to like be, oh, it's a Norwegian sock club, and they're not really that kind of socks that we do, I don't know. But then we also have some really fine white kind of lace and cable knit socks, which we use for folk costumes, and those are maybe a bit beyond my skills right now. So I don't know, those are kind of the three categories I could tap into. But I think it would be cool to do a mitten club again, where it's too early to talk about. I know, sorry. Just this is the stuff I've been thinking about. It would be really cool to do another mitten club where we are varying the weight. So start from even chunky yarn and DK, go to DK, go to a kind of sport to fingering weight, and then go to some really fine linen, and kind of have the whole spectrum, but also varying a lot of the other construction methods you could use for those mittens. So say having a ribbed cuff, a lace cuff. There are all sorts of cuffs that could be used that I haven't really tapped into, because I made these mittens initially for knitting classes where it's important to get into the colour work ASAP, thus why there are only 2 rows of rib. But that aside, plans aside, always happy to hear your opinions. But for now, I am sure you all want to hear or see, I should say, the second installment of the Mitten Club. So some of you will have seen, I have already put up a page on Ravelry, you know, a pattern page of various information, and I thought I would show you the actual mittens now. Now there is an itty bitty chance that I have put up this episode before the release, in which case it is before the release. The release is on the 1st of October. If I have decided to put this episode before, I have just decided to be nice and give you guys a sneak peek of the pattern. So yeah, this is the pattern. These are the Nea mittens, and as you can see we have advanced quite a bit from the last ones, because these are a bit tinier. It's just a little bit, the details are a bit smaller. I for one had a bit of a challenge kind of keeping up with this little wavy pattern on the side, and suddenly I was like just kind of repeating things instead of kind of alternating it to make it wavy. You will understand when you knit it, because I'm sure it will happen to more people than me. So close up. These are the mittens in question. The yarn I use is actually this ChiaoGoo Husflid yarn, which is a yarn they only sell, as far as I know, at the Husfliden in ChiaoGoo. And if you don't know what Husfliden is, it is the kind of, I translate them into being the National Craft Society of Norway. They specialize in full costumes, traditional crafts, knitting and yarn, a bit of weaving as well, like wood crafts, I guess, jewelry, but yeah, they definitely do the full costumes. That's usually your go-to place for that, and they are awesome, I think. And they are now kind of, at least my local shop are really kind of taking back the whole Norwegian focus on yarn, and that is really cool. This is, however, from not my local shop, but from another Husfliden, which is in the village of ChiaoGoo, where these mittens of this club are local to. The village is not far away from where I'm from, so it's no trouble at all for me to go there and get that yarn. So yeah, do you want to see the whole thing? Let's look at the back. And this is the poem. It may look a bit wonky because someone hasn't blocked their mittens yet. Because that's the kind of knitter I am, apparently, when doing a club and selling designs. They block out fine. Yeah. I'm just lazy, sorry. So yeah, this is what we have. I really like this poem. It is a step up from the last poem, but not too complicated, still quite memorizable. I like always putting a little detail on the thumbs. I have done that. I like how the poem kind of continues onto the back side of the mitten. Instructions will tell you how to do that, just like before. And what I've done a bit differently with these mittens than the pattern will tell you is the cuff. I have inverted the colours of the cuff, and I did that because I was worried I would not have enough yarn, because this particular yarn is a little bit short on the meter edge. I do, however, think I would have been fine, but if you are worried about the meterage of your yarn, or yardage if you will, try inverting the colours of the cuff, and it's a pretty cool effect. I didn't actually realise when designing these that the cuff would kind of continue into the hand, so later on I did actually kind of modify the pattern so that these would be aligned, because they were kind of off by one stitch and that wasn't very nice. Well, it's nice enough, I guess. Mittens are falling down. So yeah, these are the Nea mittens. I have named these after the river that runs all the way from, excuse me, the mountains of Sweden through Tydalen, which is a village near and dear to my heart in the mountains of Norway. One of the many mountains, I should say. It runs through Tydalen and through this kind of valley way of Flora into Sarbu and out into Sarbusjön, which is the sea of Sarbu. So I just thought these reminded me of a river, the way they kind of go up here and it's kind of wavy, and it just made sense to me to name them Nea. And for those of you who are curious and have forgotten, the last pair of mittens are called Merbunten. But I realised that can be a bit hard to say because my dialect is a bit of a funky one. So if you want to say Merbunden, that's fine. We can live with that. Merbunden, I can accept that. Totally fine. But yeah, Nea, hopefully a little bit easier. Gosh, there's a lot of talk about Norwegian pronunciation lately. The Lykke needles have certainly spurred that quite a bit. I mean, if I want to give you a rule of thumbs for those needles, just remember hygge. It's the same vowels. Lykke, hygge. Yeah, vowels are pretty predictable in Norway. Having said that though, like I've had some people be like, oh yeah, I got the Lykke needles because this and that podcast mentioned them, and I've sometimes been name dropped there. I never tried those needles, just saying. I'm just telling you how to pronounce things because apparently I'm that kind of language person. Really, I mean, I speak English all the time and it's certainly not my first language, so no judgment, guys, seriously. Apparently this podcast has become a bit of a site for me to push my own patterns, and I hope that's fine with everybody. I did not start this podcast to do that, but it has certainly opened up the way for me to I guess push my patterns. I am really hoping to make a living out of knitting patterns. I am more and more thinking in those terms more so than academia, although doing both of them would be lovely as well. But having said that, I have a pattern out. And it is the Yggdrasil mitts. I'm really hoping it will be out by the time this episode goes up. It should be. According to my plans, it will have been for a few days, and it will have had a discount code that should still be valid. For those of you curious why I do initial discount codes, I just think the people who have been like, oh my god, I've been waiting for this pattern and I want to buy this pattern for you right away. I kind of want to reward those people a bit, and I guess the people that buy them early on will have bought them early on anyway. So it's kind of a way for me to just say like, thank you. The people that buy them initially are the people that help me the most, because those are the people that help it trend on Ravelry. So for me it makes sense to put a 20% off for those individuals, because it helps me so much. I don't care that I lose out of money that way. I really don't see it that way. So guys, discount code, go right ahead. So yeah, these are a fingering weight pair of mitts. Sometimes I seem to be spreading a bit of confusion when I go into fingering weight patterns, because people are so used to me using DK weight for mittens that they try using DK weights for these kinds of things, and that's just, don't do that. Read the patterns for yarn recommendations, it's all there. it's also on the pattern page. I really try to give out as much info about the pattern as possible before you actually buy it, so you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. Anyway, close up. I used Jameson's Spindrift for all colors but the white. The white is Rauma Finulgarn, and so happy to say you can use either. This is the back side of them. I'm using the traditional Norwegian thumb gusset for these. It worked out really nicely, so I might stick to that for future fingerless mitts. It's just a really nice shape. You wouldn't think it actually fits so well, but if I put them on, because you think your thumb comes out sideways, right? But if you look at it, it kind of comes out from the front. Like, this is kind of how our hands are. So when I put them on, the fit, I am so happy with the fit. I'm not actually like pulling this out where it shouldn't be. It just goes exactly where it needs to be, and yeah, I just really quite proud of this pattern, if I'm going to be honest. So yeah, the Yggdrasil mittens. Again, pronunciation guys, just go ahead. I'm sure there's been developed some kind of English way of saying Yggdrasil already, because it is the tree of life from Norse mythology, which I named it just because that's what this reminded me of. It's kind of like the Mines of Moria, I think, Lord of the Rings tree. It kind of looks like that. Not intentional, but it just kind of got me thinking, and I think Yggdrasil is a nice little name for them. So anyone want to have a go at these, go right ahead. Again, I want to thank my test knitters so much. There should be lots of pictures of these mittens up on the pattern page from theirs, where they've tried out all sorts of color combinations. Not all of them are as kind of festive as these, so they're not supposed to be Christmas style, so that's you can just use whatever colors you want. I for one think I would love to have these in white on dark kind of midnight blue. That would be so cool. Anyway, I think we've had enough of my pattern banter for now, so I'll just move these aside. I do, however, want to remind you also that there are some giveaways, and I still have a discount code for Anna of Janesty's Fergus socks. But as for the giveaways, there are 2 shawls up on my Ravelry group, and the reason I'm mentioning this the second time in a row is because I forgot to open the threads last time I put up an episode, because I was not quite well, so just forgot. But regardless, it's up there now. It's up there for your enjoyment. You can partake. The rules are in each thread. It's 1 shawl by my friend Jennifer, and there's 1 shawl, which is this one, which I wear all the time and I love it. I am so happy it's coming out on the 4th of October. Now, if you happen to get this pattern or win this pattern and you find, Ellie, it's only in Norwegian. Why did you not tell us? It will come out in English. Not to worry. I have been promised by Pinneguri that she is working on an English version of it. Just hang in there. It will come out. Maybe not on the 4th exactly, but in a couple of days after that, I have been told. So, not to worry. Oh, and speaking of what else I am wearing, aside from the winter shawl, I am wearing my Elinor cardigan. It is something I've just knit up. In Drops Baby Merino. I really love this cardigan. You know, you hear me talk about rustic yarns a lot, and when I do that, it's not a judgment call, it's just literally my favorite kind of yarn. But my favorite cardigan is in superwash merino, so it's not like I think all superwash is bad. It's not like I think merino is a big no-no. I just think you need to consider the optimal yarn for each individual project and what you want it to be. I like this being a kind of warm weather indoors kind of cardigan. I can wear this on a summer day because it's still quite airy and not too warm because of the superwash. Definitely skin friendly. Just the pattern shows up really nicely. It becomes quite smooth. I have gotten most of the pilling away by now because I wear it so much, so it's like, you know, yarn choice just has to be thoughtful. It's not a judgment call. It's not oh, you shouldn't be using that yarn ever, you should only be using that yarn, this is clearly the superior yarn. I mean, to some extent you can say that, but again, it has to be informed. And so that is something I wanted to say, because sometimes I feel like we talk about yarn snobbery a lot, and I think a lot of the times just people voicing their preferences can be misconstrued as them being yarn snobs, and that's certainly not my intention if I've ever come across as doing that. I think yes, it's good to think about what's natural in terms of, you know, environmental impact, in terms of it being, you know, too much plastic in the world or not, in terms of how things are going to hold up and be durable long term. All those things are factors to take into account, and that's pretty much my thoughts on that. Anyway, I want to get into the knitting now, because I've been talking for a long time, which is a good thing, because I don't really have much knitting to talk about, because I'm recording this on, is it Tuesday? Is it Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday today. I should know this, but the last episode I recorded on Friday, and it hasn't really been much happening since then. Part of the reason for that is because I went to Yarndale, which I will be getting into in the acquisitions thread part, which is going to be lengthy, you know me. I'm going to talk about Yarndale then. Unfortunately, I have no footage of Yarndale because someone forgot their memory card. That was still on my computer when I left, so I didn't have any means to record. Just trust me that it was a very good festival. I tried to describe it in full length to you guys. First of all, I am happy to say that I have a finished object, and it's another pair of socks. Apparently I'm on a sock kick. This is not the sock knitting kind of podcast, but apparently that's what I do right now, because I am trying to catch up with Kristen of Yarngasm's box of socks knit along. So I have my second pair of socks from the Tant Ultus socks book. That's the one. So if you don't know, Tant Ultus socks is a Swedish colorwork sock knitting book, which is awesome. I talked about it a lot lately because I really love it. I had it purchased and ordered from Sweden, which apparently you can do from anywhere in the world, so that's pretty good. And these are my second socks, which is the Barbro socks. I forgot to say that last time. They are the Barbro socks, and they're named after, I believe, Tant Ultus socks pug. So Barbro is a pug, and yeah, I have used West Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply, the signature 4-ply yarn. It is a sock yarn with a, not all BFL, but a certain percentage of BFL. It's a bit disappointing to find out that it wasn't 100%, but still, no complaints of the yarn. Because, I mean, with the nylon and the BFL and the other wool yarn, it is so strong. It hurts my finger to break this yarn the way I do them, because I'm lazy. And yeah, close up of the pattern. This kind of pattern has a name. I just forgot what it's called. I can look it up, but you know. Very happy with these. I guess I kind of wish that I had made the Latvian braids on top on a smaller needle, because they kind of do this sometimes, you know. Excuse me, I'm recording. So that is just that. I don't know what else to say. I'm just, yeah, this time I didn't use the lang yarn, so I didn't have the opportunity here to hold yarn double with some reinforcement thread, but I still feel like it's quite sturdy. I went down from a 3mm needle for the cuff to a 2.5 for the heel, and then I continued on 2.75 all the way to the toe. These needle sizes are completely arbitrary, as I hope you know, because tension is very individual, so two people using the same needle size will most of the time result in vastly different results. So when I make these on 3mm, they might be quite tight fitting for me, but for you it might be completely loose, or who knows. So I'm just giving you kind of the needle ratio that I use. I usually do this. If I start with a rib, I may start with 2.5mm, and then I do the the leg in 3mm, so that I can get the color work over my heel. And then I go down to usually 2.75 actually for the heel, because I want it to be at the same gauge as the color work. But when I don't do color work, it tends to be a bit looser, so I go down a quarter needle size. Then I do 2.75 all the way through. The only reason I did 2.5 for the heel this time is because I had left my 2.75 needles. Oops. Anyway, another pair of socks down. I now have 6 pairs for the box of socks knit along. So I showed you last time, it's the Collier socks. It is the Villemo socks. It is the Mercury socks. It is the Townwall socks. It is the Miss Sergel socks, and it's the Barbro socks. So there we are, and I have a couple of other socks in progress because we're done with finished objects. I'm going to talk about what I've been working on since Friday. Now please do bear in mind that I spent Saturday being away and on Yarndale, and I spent Friday catching up on sleep. So literally we're looking at the knits from Monday and Tuesday. That's why we don't really see much knitting really. So the Transcendent socks I've not worked on that much. I will show you just in case you forgot. It is a design I'm working on and I really like them. I don't know if I worked on them at all. I may have continued on the colour work just a tad bit. So this is what they look like. It will be out hopefully once I have finished knitting them and had test knitters finish knitting them. Anyway, so this is just what's going on here. I am using Always Etc's Texelar sock yarn, which is a rustic yarn, a very light fingering with nylon. I love it. Also, you could use her Campish Hayden Shop pronunciation sock yarn, which is pretty equivalent, only a tad bit softer. So there is that. Just thought I would show you that. But yeah, not much progress done, unfortunately. So I have cast on another pair of socks, as you do, and they're actually not from the Tant Ultu socks book. No, I'm working on a design that I'd planned out since March. I just haven't gotten around to actually get them on the needles. Because, you know, I was so enthusiastic to find the Tuku wool sock yarn, which is a rustic sport weight yarn in Finnish wool and nylon, and that got me really excited. So I drew up a design in Excel, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna knit this, and I never did. And eventually I had to sit down with the actual pattern, write it all up, figure out how to do the heel and everything theoretically without actually knitting it, and I've got the whole thing written up and done and ready, and now I'm knitting it, and the heel worked. It's a really cool heel actually. But let me just show you the sock. I've been debating about keeping it secret, but I think I want to get this out for Christmas, and so no point being secretive because you want to have them ahead of Christmas, right? So the socks in question look like this. So this is the main motif. Now bear in mind I've not blocked this, and they are sport weight that I'm still knitting at a very tight gauge, so they are quite stiff and warm and awesome, and I love Tuku wool sock yarn. So this is the front and this is kind of the back. So the thought behind these socks is actually a Serbian mitten for your feet. So you see the gusset here? That's right, I'm doing a gusset. No short row heel this time, although with some caution there. And this is the gusset, and it kind of, I wanted to take from the thumb gusset of the Serbian mitten and put it into the sock gusset and have the kind of side that you have on the mittens. So I didn't do the toe mitten style with the colour work all the way, because doing that toe up, no. So I didn't do that. I wanted just a plain red toe, but obviously now I can regret that decision because I am playing yarn chicken with these socks. So I will of course get the meterage right in the pattern, but if I run out of yarn I may have to order more Tuku wool sock yarn or use of my Tuku wool fingering weight yarn, which I'll get back to, because it's the same colorway. It just doesn't come with nylon, but using that for the cuff shouldn't really be an issue. So but anyway, this is what the sock looks like from the side. So let's talk about this heel, because I'm sure you're curious what kind of heel has Ellie come up with this time. Well, it's kind of like a 50-50 short row heel and heel flap and gusset. It has both. So without giving too much away from my own pattern, up to here it's all like an increased gusset. It's a very much like any I want to say toe up heel flap and gusset, and then with the heel extension here I kind of done so much it almost starts to resemble half of a German short row heel, which isn't unusual. It's just kind of, yeah, I really like that. And then I do slip stitch heel up to here, and it's just really nice. Offers a lot of space, which is good when you're doing color work. I'm sure lots of you who have higher arches than me will be happy about this pattern. I just need to get it finished, get it out to test knitters. Yes, so far I'm just testing out how long I want the leg to be. That's literally the only thing lacking from the pattern right now. So either I will choose test knitters from the ones I already know, or the call will be out on Instagram, and that will be when it's appropriate to respond. So there is that. I think I'm gonna put these down, but I am very happy with the progress on them, and I'm using my ChiaoGoos, and I'm using 2.75s, and that is a bit of a departure for me usually using 3mm. But I find actually I'm getting a 3mm type gauge on these because the yarn is so much thicker. So that is something to be aware of if you are going to use the Tuku wool sock yarn. It's dense. It is really, really dense, but I love these. They're going to be so winter appropriate and even a little bit Christmas appropriate. Usually I get a bit sort of, you know, this happens quite a bit in London when I wear my knitted sweaters and people go, why are you wearing a Christmas jumper now? And I'm like, it is not Christmas, it's my heritage. So, you know, they're not just for Christmas, but they're good for Christmas too. And as always, I got a bit overheated from podcasting, so we did a bit of a obligatory costume change, a bit of cotton. So I do have another work in progress, but I think I will be showing you that when I cover my acquisitions, my purchases from the Yarndale Fibre Festival, which was awesome. So just to tell you the whole story, I got up at, I want to say 6:15 in the morning in order to be at King's Cross at 7:05, where I departed, and just could not sleep on the train, so that was out of the question. And yeah, before I knew it, I was in Skipton just in time for Yarndale to open at 10 o'clock. And first thing I did was going to Laxtons, because I love Laxtons yarn. Here's the thing, Laxtons, they produce wool for dyers. They produce British wool, a lot of blue-faced Leicester and a bit of Falkland Merino and that kind of thing. And when they sell the yarn at fibre festivals, it is so much cheaper than what they sell them for online. So they say that their yarns are 40% more expensive if you buy them online than at the festival. So I bought 3 sweater quantities. I mean, when they cost £5 per skein, that is a pretty affordable sweater quantity. Now, granted, I don't really have the financial means to cover that even, but still, you know, I wanted it. So let's just have a little look. So first thing I had to get was more fingering weight. So I got 3 skeins in here and 1 balled up here, and the reasons why will become apparent. And it's just amazing, amazing. It is so soft and woolly and lofty, and I'm pretty sure it's woolen spun. It is a bit more drapey than our usual rustic yarns, but that is also because it is a lot softer. And I love this sort of oatmeal-y kind of grey. Not that oatmeal is grey, but you know what I mean. And so I have no intentions of dyeing this up. I'm gonna knit it into a sweater, and I know exactly what sweater. We'll get back to that. But because I love this yarn so much, I had to get more weight, as I'm sure you figured out. So I got the DK weight and the Aran weight. Got 5 skeins of each weight. So this, I believe, is the Aran weight. You can see it's quite thick. And here is the DK, if I am correct. Yes, it is. So, and I know what this is going to be. This is going to be the Lady Marple, I think it's called. No, I don't know what this is going to be, but you know, DK weight, you can always use some DK weight. There are DK cardigans out all the time lately, and I always think, gosh, I wish I had more DK weight. Why did I buy so much fingering weight sweater quantities? Well, that's not a problem anymore, is it? You know, I can totally see myself wearing this colour, so again, I don't see myself dyeing it, to be honest. It seems a bit of a shame, really. I'm certainly not going to dye the Aran weight or the fingering weight. Not sure about the DK weight just yet. So just to give you a bit of a close-up of the fingering weight, just to give you a sense of the fibre here, the woolen spunness of it all, and the kind of loose 2-plied. And I'm just, oh, I love it. It's so nice and so soft. And just, oh. So I did say I bought more. What I meant by that is that I actually have 4 skeins of this yarn in the Knitting Goddess yarns. They are dyed nearly black, but I wanted some natural colours as well. And I have the DK weight in about, I want to say 8 skeins, most of which have already been knitted up into my the Hansel hap. So that's that. I just needed more. I love Laxtons. I think if you ever go to Fibre Festival, Laxtons should, well, I want to say it should be your first stop, but I don't want you to take all the Laxtons yarn before I get there. Now my second stop, after a lot of walking around, I probably spent the first 3 hours on just 2 aisles there. I spent that time with Nessa of the Kilt to Craft podcast, which was a lot of fun, and we stumbled upon the Hand-Dyed by Kate booth. And there was Nikki, who I'm sure you know from Amy Florence podcast, of the Stranded Dye Works yarn, and I believe that's the name of her podcast as well. So Nikki is just kind of the person who, without having a podcast herself, I think, just pops up on other podcasts all the time. It's just a lovely person. So it's really nice meeting you, Nikki and Nessa. And I had to get a skein of Hand-Dyed by Kate, to be honest, because I have been looking for a camel silk yarn in grey for the longest time, because I have this amazing camel silk base yarn from Travel Knitter. So Larissa of Travel Knitter, as you've heard me say before, has amazing colorways, really bright colors. It's got a bright red skein from hers, but she doesn't do them in grey. So I was like, oh, where can I get grey? And then finally Hand-Dyed by Kate had grey. So there we are. And this thing is a bit dangly because it doesn't want to tie up, because this yarn is so smooth and so soft. There's just no hope to make this thing tie up again. I've tried and I can't really wind skeins anyway, as those of you who have received minis from me will know. This is just kind of, yeah, I don't know if I can show you a meaningful close-up here. Just, yeah, it is. This is the softest yarn I know of, and it makes me quite happy because the camel and the silk are both quite sturdy yarns. They are not short staples, so being soft doesn't necessarily translate to this being quite pilly. I mean, I've rubbed this quite a bit, and it's like the fluff halo here. It's quite limited. Like, sure, there is a bit, it's yarn, but yeah, I'm not too concerned. I think this along with the red could be an amazing cowl or shawl or something to go here, and just, oh, it's so nice, it's so nice. So this base is called Titanium, and yeah, 50% baby camel, 50% silk, 400 meters per 100 grams, hand wash recommended. So a 4-ply yarn, 400 meters. It's just amazing. I'm very glad I found this. It's gonna definitely put me a bit to rest in terms of finding a grey camel silk skein. And of course I stopped by Pearl Essence to get 3 fixed circular needles from ChiaoGoo, because I have just converted completely to ChiaoGoo needles lately. Who knew that would happen? And then I finally stopped by Coop Knits. I have intended to get some socks, yeah, yarn from Coop Knits for the longest time, and they were sold by Rachel Coopy in person, which was really nice. And yeah, I got 4 skeins. She actually sold them at reduced price, so these were also £5 each. So again, I'm just really good at finding the affordable stuff, you know. It's not that I'm incredibly wealthy or anything. So I got a amazing turquoise, a very kind of bright turquoise, really nice. And I got another grey. I think this was my 20th grey skein, and I got this lovely green and an orange. So altogether these are the colors that I got from Coop Knits. So they actually kind of go really well together. I'm not sure if I will be using them together, but I might. They look really nice. So yeah. I also ended up getting this cat bag. I don't remember who made this. I'm rubbish at remembering who made project bags, and they are not always labelled. I don't know if it's labelled because it's full of yarn that I intend to cast on soon, but it's just the coolest little pattern, isn't it? Anyone who remembers or knows the name of this maker, just put it down below and I'll try to credit them accordingly. So yeah, that was a project bag I just needed to get. And then I had to return to a booth that I had been thinking about a lot, and I knew it was a bit above my price range, but I have been fondling this mini skein since the yarn crawl in London, and I've been thinking about it, and I knew I had to get it. So I went to Walcot yarns and I got 4 grey skeins. So I think now we're up to 20 grey skeins. something. Yeah, look at that. Oh my god, this yarn. Okay, so why am I getting crazy over grey skeins? Well, this is 70% Falkland merino, 30% camel, baby camel I believe, and 100% awesome, if you can believe it. And it is just that. It is, again, one of those yarns that is amazingly soft but not compromising on its quality. So again, I can rub this skein pretty badly, and again, the pilling potential here seems quite low. And I think it's because Falkland merino is just a particular kind of merino that is just very strong. It's sturdy. It's still, whilst being a short stable, not the most pill prone of merinos, and the baby alpaca, which is a long staple, keeps it away, keeps it from being too pilly as well, whereas the amount of merino keeps the alpaca from being too drapey. So it's just a very lovely balance, and it's so soft. Oh my god. And it's non-superwash, which makes me very, very happy. 325 meters in a 100 gram skein, and I think this is gonna be the Natsumi sweater, which is actually a Brooklyn tweed pattern with a cable across here, so it's kind of sideways knit. A construction method I have never tried, but a knitter I know here in London has made a sweater like that, and every time I see it I'm like, I need that. I really do. So that's the plan for this. Whether it happens or not, we'll see, but that's what I thought I would do. I even bought some more of this Opus yarn of Walcot yarns because my friend Christy, he said, I just got paid, so I want yarn. And she never really treats herself to the highly ranked and priced yarns, so she was going to treat herself, and I was like, you need to treat yourself to some Walcot yarns. And so I bought her these. And what's so cool about this yarn is that it goes really well with her birthday present, which is a Hufflepuff notebook. So it's like a Hufflepuff present of sorts. So yeah, just thought I'd show you that. I even got myself a Ravenclaw book. This has got nothing to do with Yarndale. It's something I picked up weeks ago. It's just, yeah, now we have Harry Potter books. As for house, I think I am a Ravenclaw, but I also feel more Hufflepuff amongst Ravenclaws. Does that make sense? I'm not gonna go too into Harry Potter talk here. But yeah, what do you think? A lot of people like find me to be quite Ravenclaw. I get very nerdy about things. I get very don't want to say focused, but detail oriented, but very preoccupied and a bit weird. But at the same time, when I'm amongst other Ravenclaws, I feel very Hufflepuffy. So I'm a Ravenpuff, I guess. But I love the colour scheme of Ravenclaw more, so there's that. Easy decision. And now back to my Yarndale haul. I went to Midwinter Yarns because they're always my favourite when I go to a UK yarn event, because they sell Scandinavian yarns, albeit never anything from Norway. They usually have Swedish and Finnish stuff. So I picked up more Tuku wool fingering weight. And you'll recognise this red shade because it's the same shade that I'm using on my socks, which, albeit it uses the sport weight sock yarn of theirs, but I can totally get away with using this yarn for the rest of the cuff if there's anything left from the mittens that I plan on knitting with these. I did actually show the lady selling this yarn, sorry I forgot your name, what I was going to make with these. It's a particular Christmas pattern I am planning to do. I'm also thinking about the mystery mitten pattern that I've told you about. It seems like there's enough interest for me to do that, but I think I want to start mid-November if my test knitters are done by then, because then you can wear them during Christmas as well. And I think maybe 2 queues per week was a nice rate, and just keep the cal open so that people can still finish. Yeah, I think we can do that. But these are for a different pair of mittens entirely, because I got more Christmas mittens coming, because it's Christmas and you just have to. So that's all I'm gonna say. And lastly, I had to stop at the Knitting Goddess because that's what I always do, and I got a bundle of mini skeins that sparkle. So this is the BFL Masham yarn in mini skeins that have glitter in them. I'm gonna put them away before I mess up the order, because the order matters to me right now. But yeah, just to give you a close-up, it's just the best. Like, I don't even like sparkly yarn, and this yarn, it's just too much. So I had to. And now I'm going to tell you the plan I have for these. Now if I could choose, I would probably have opted for the non-sparkly option, but there wasn't any, so it's just gonna sparkle, and it might just be a very involuntary Christmas jumper. But I have had a go at the Bergen sweater. So I'm now, this is where I'd balled up the Laxtons 4-ply because I'm using it for the Bergen, and this is how far I've gotten. Look, it's sparkly. It's ridiculous. It is just ridiculous. It's just gonna look like a Christmas jumper and I'm gonna look like a mad woman. But yeah, I am now on the row where I'm carrying 3 yarns at once and I hate it. I mean, I love this pattern. I just never like carrying more than 2 strands. So yeah, and you might be wondering, what's this? I couldn't get the rib right. I tried doing it and then I tested if I could get it over my head and I couldn't. My head is quite big. But I also don't want a neckline that's too open. So I did a provisional cast on just below the first increases. So when I put this back on the needles again, I will have to do the first row of increases, knit the rib, and then I can assess how tight the bind off needs to be so that I can get it over my head. That's just the best way I could do it. So all the short rows for the neck are still here. It should be fairly straightforward to try this thing on when I need to. I just kind of had to get started really. I was so sleep deprived on Sunday. This was pretty much the only thing I could get done. And yeah, I want to show you this story there. I mean, those of you who follow me on Instagram will already know. But on the way back, before I go into that story, by the way, I just want to thank everybody who I met. I met a lot of people who I haven't met for a long time, and a lot of people I haven't met ever, and that was so nice. I mean, some of you had to kind of remind me of who you were because my brain is just like, I was still quite unwell. I'm still quite unwell, but regardless, like names and faces and stuff is not my forte, so thank you for having patience with me. The light bulb eventually did kind of light up and I remembered, and it was really lovely to meet you all. You know who you are. I'm just going to move on to my journey back to London. So I left Skipton and went to Leeds to change to the train that would take me to London. And that's where the problem started. Because maybe after an hour or so on the train, maybe an hour and a half, it stopped. And they said it stopped because they were removing some disruptive passengers. There were some drunken people from Leeds. And I don't want to like fire up on the stereotypes of people from the north, but the outfits I've seen and the things I've heard, the stuff that people up there wear when they're going out at night. Wow, you guys. More power to you. I'm from the north, but I never quite... No, we're just going to move on with the story. They removed some disruptive drunken passengers, but then we were still stuck. And we were like, So apparently the electrical wiring further south between us and London had broken down. A train had broken down and there was no way we could pass through without losing power and thus not drive through at all. And a lot of trains were affected. They couldn't get south on those particular railways. So we were waiting and waiting and waiting. We probably sat there until midnight, to be honest. We just didn't move at all. And the atmosphere was not great, I have to say. Like, we had police marching through the carriages and on the speakers we were given very little information. Like, we were updated fairly frequently, but with no information because didn't have any, which is fair enough. But we were told that, you know, we've had to remove some disruptive passengers who were showing some disgusting behavior, and we think you should all be grateful that you all have power, you have electricity and light, which cannot be said for all the trains. You got leg room and you got the platform to stretch your legs out if need be. I was like, seriously, they prioritized getting police into the carriages to keep us in line rather than setting up coaches when this problem was initially, I guess, discovered, to take us south immediately. Like, just set up coaches, because we didn't move until past midnight for sure, and then we were only taken to the next station where we were moved eventually onto a diesel train where we were all stacked together. And I got really ill. I just had to, like, between the first class seats, I had to sit down on the floor because we were just standing and put my head between my knees and really like focus on my breathing to not get too nauseous, and just, it was not great. Just no. Eventually we got to the next station, which took forever. Like, it's really not a long stretch between the two, but it took so long. It was driving so slowly, probably because there were lots of trains passing through and eventually we were transferred back to a, I guess, normal train. And at this point it was probably 3 o'clock at night. No opportunity to sleep, nobody's given us any food. It was just pretty horrid, and I kind of slept a bit on the last hour on my way to London, but not really. And I had to, I'm gonna save you the details, but it wasn't great. And went to King's Cross only to be sent to a taxi queue so that we could get a taxi for free. So we were still held up at King's Cross, but eventually they took us on taxis for free, and I got dropped off in front of my door and went to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh god, it was just not great. And I slept until 2 the next morning, or the day if you will. Yeah, it's not what I needed after having been ill. I mean, there were people coming all the way from Durham, so I mean, I was not in the worst situation there, but still, like lots of us, we gotten up early the morning on the same day to get the train up, and then we just being kept from sleeping for so long, and that was just kind of wow. So I'm in the process of reclaiming my money there, hopefully get compensated, because that's just no way to treat people. You can just put up coaches, like, come on, have a backup option, guys. Just anyway, enough angry rants at the National Rail. I think should keep it to the knitting. And yeah, that was my Yarndale experience. The good and the bad. It was definitely worth it though. It was just such an awesome festival. Definitely up there with Edinburgh to some extent. Like, there's some things about Edinburgh I liked more just because of the community, the people that went, but in terms of the yarn and the festival itself, it was great. I loved it. And again, I am about to wrap things up. I don't think I'll be mentioning more knitting from now on, so you can throttle on if you are done. I just again want to thank people for their lovely support when I'm going through a rather difficult phase of my life. Again, I have not disclosed anything, and I will not, and I will also, as usual, ask people not to speculate. And when I say speculate, it's not like, oh, because it's so private to me and you have to respect my privacy and it's none of your business. It's like, you're gonna be wrong. You know, I had people just kind of jump into the conclusion that it's depression or my PhD, and it's just not at all. You couldn't guess it. Like, I've spoken to people IRL and they didn't see what it was. You know, they didn't guess. They were like, oh, I did. Yeah, I can see why you wouldn't mention that on the podcast, and that is a relief in a way, but it's also, yeah, I can see why that is very difficult. And it's like, you know, you just don't know. But nonetheless, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support and the lovely comments I have received. And I'm still kind of torn between staying true to my mood on this podcast, but also carrying on being enthusiastic over knitting and yarn and the events I have planned ahead, because I am going to Bergen this weekend, and I will probably be there when this episode goes up, and hopefully have a nice bit of footage and haul for you once I am back to London. I may have to edit and produce all this stuff in Stavanger, but I may also feel too awkward doing that with my aunt and uncle around, so we'll see about that. But regardless, I things are still kind of not very nice here. So again, having all of your support, it means the world. It really does. I don't know if it feels a bit silly to point it out, but there have been the odd few individuals who have not been supportive. Like, very, very, very few. I am very lucky here on YouTube, but there are the very few that just go, oh, I didn't subscribe for this, you know. I have seen that my latest video has received more dislikes than I've ever had, and that is still nothing. Here on YouTube is nothing. I am so incredibly fortunate, and I feel a bit silly for mentioning it because it's just so little, but it's a bit of a sort of ouch when it's my podiversary video and I was really ill and not in a good place, and it was either that video or no video, and I'm being kind of, I guess, faced with that, which is still a tiny little thing, and probably partially due to having a slightly rude knitting bag, and partially due to just forgetting to put the timestamp where you could skip my personal little chatter in the beginning, because I was ill and I forgot, and it was just like an export in the middle of the night of the video, and the upload happened while I was sleeping and I couldn't change anything while I was in Yarndale. It's just how it is sometimes. It really, like, just, I guess I want to ask you to go easy on me a little bit, because I am just not quite 100% right now, and it's either these kinds of videos or no videos at all. So hopefully that is something people can tolerate. And in addition to that, like, one thing I can see from my statistics is that most of the dislikes I receive are from subscribers. Like, I want to say 3 out of 5. And like, even if they're very, very few, so few it's not worth mentioning, it's something I'm seeing a trend of. I know it's true for other podcasts as well as mine, and it makes me wonder if either one or two things are happening, and I think it is worth discussing, and hopefully we can have a conversation instead of just being kind of dismissive, because that's usually my experience here, that people are having a conversation and not being dismissive. So that is something I'm very hopeful. It seems like either there are the odd few that literally just subscribe to be negative. They subscribe and they feel like it's then their job to, as soon as they see a video up, to vote it down. And that's not very nice. And the other thing I think that we see more of, which is a kind of entitlement when you have subscribed, and this is something I kind of have to check myself on as well. It's not inhumane, it's not cruel, it's just kind of a thing that is wrong, but we kind of have that mentality from other medias. So we kind of go, oh, I didn't subscribe for this, as if saying, oh, I didn't pay to have this kind of content. But you didn't pay. I'm giving this away for free. This is my kind of videos for you. You don't have to do anything to watch this. You don't have to give me anything. I'm not claiming anything. I'm doing this out of my own spare time and even work time, and just handing you my knitting experience and stories and life and part of my personality for free. And so having that response when I am voluntarily doing this, and having a sort of knee-jerk reaction that is, but this is what I asked for. You don't actually get to ask. I say you, like, you guys are awesome. Like, this is a very, 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 very small minority. But thing is, what I'm trying to say is, I don't owe anyone anything. I am super grateful for anyone who has subscribed, but I don't owe anyone any particular type of content. Nobody gets to dictate what I make just because they have hit subscribed. I am very much willing to take a collaborative approach with this podcast and listen to what people have to say, okay, someone asks me to do something. Obviously, depending on how it's being asked, if it's sort of like, you should do this, I'm like, I'm not an on-demand thing. But if people come with a recommendation, it's like, oh, I would really like if you could do this. I would think we would be really interested if you did that, if you showed us this, if you explained that. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting, and it's really cool that people want to know that, and I'm like thinking about it. You know, I really like that kind of collaborative approach. But saying that, subscribing does not give anyone the right to demand anything, to expect anything, to literally inhibit my videos to be more readily available on YouTube because they don't like what I made subjectively, when I've really done the best that I can, spend a lot of my time and really try to podcast when I am not feeling unwell. Like, if you'd seen the full footage of last week's episode, seen all the coughing and this kind of respiratory area cleansing that I had to do, that I'd cut away, it'd be a different experience. Let's just say that, you know, I had to overcome quite a bit of illness there and cut away a lot. So most people are really understanding of this and really appreciative. I just want to make this clear because it's something that's easily forget, and that's kind of why I'm saying I kind of have to catch myself on this from time to time as well, and remember the amount of time a podcaster puts into their work, the fact that they are giving it away for free with no expectations, with nothing in return, just to share, just to be part of a community, just to have conversations. And that is the crux of it, really. That is what's going on. It's not a thing where those who have subscribed kind of have any sort of ownership over those videos, over that channel. And I think most of us know that, but it doesn't hurt having a reminder, because we're coming from very different perspectives, being on a different side of the camera, and there's a lot of things I didn't quite fully grasp before I kind of got on this side of the camera as well. So it might be useful for people to hear that, I guess. So hopefully that wasn't too much negativity to end the videos on. I do still want to thank the vast majority of you for just being fantastic. And again, like, I get people telling me just the most wonderful things, and the odd few like sending me actual things in the mail or patterns, and I'm like, guys, you don't have to, but I still can't thank you enough. And makes me very much feel like I'm looking forward to going to all the fiber festivals, to Yarndale and to the ones in Norway that I'm going to go to, and to go on the other side of the world to potentially meet people from here. Even though my mood is a bit so-and-so, even though my health might be not always quite there, it makes me feel like it's a safe environment and community to go to. So there's a bit of pointing fingers here, but there's also a lot of gratitude and appreciation, and me really needing to go to work, because in 2 hours I have a participant for my psychology study and I'm still in my bedroom. So I will see you in Bergen, I will see you in Oslo, I will see you again here, and hopefully also I'll have time to see some of you in Vancouver and New York. Again, recap, finished a pair of socks. I have released the second installment of the Selby mitten, or third installment if you call the mitten, if you count the mittens that are already out there, the Selby mittens. So we got Selby mittens, Merbonden and Nea. I also have a pattern out, the Yggdrasil mitts. There's a discount code for them, for the people who are early. And I think, yeah, we're done. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. You guys are awesome. See you next time. Bye.